Right, so you're thinking about picking up Allie Hazelwood's Deep End, and you want to know if it's actually worth it.
Well, we're going to deep dive into that today.
Exactly. See, we want to help you decide if you should add it to your TVR or, maybe skip it.
Right.
We've got like a ton of Goodreads reviews. We've even got a professional review from the Every Girl. But the verdict.
It's a bit of a mixed bag on this one.
It really is, huh?
Yeah.
It's Hazelwood, so obviously we're talking STEMinist romance. But this time, she's kind of added a layer of BDSM. And I think that's where people are getting a little...
That's where the waters get a little choppy.
Yes.
Yeah, some readers are like head over heels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're calling it like her hottest book yet.
Wow.
But others are saying they feel a bit misled.
Misled? In what way? Like, is it not as spicy as it's hyped up to be?
Yeah, it's really subjective.
Okay.
Because like the book opens with the heroine Scarlet. She's talking about BDSM with her best friend, like right out the gate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's definitely there.
Yeah.
And there are some elements like she uses safe words and they have a contract,
Ooh.
which a lot of readers found really hot. But then there are other readers who maybe went in expecting like a more explicit type of story and they felt kind of let down.
So it's not like full-blown...
Right. It's not necessarily hitting that mark.
Okay.
Everyone.
Gotcha. So maybe not as authentic, I guess, is what they're saying.
I wouldn't say inauthentic, though.
Oh, okay.
Because she does explore, like, the emotional and psychological side of BDSM
Okay.
quite well. And you also have to remember that, like, context is everything.
Yep, that's true.
These are college students. They're, like, relatively new to this world themselves.
Oh, okay.
So the level of kink kind of reflects that.
All right. So it's more about the journey into it, maybe?
Yeah.
Rather than like the...
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if someone's going in expecting that 50 Shades level, they might be disappointed.
Yeah, if you're looking for something that's, like, purely physical
Right.
and pushing those boundaries, then Deep End might not be it.
Okay. That makes sense.
I'd argue the more interesting question is, does the kink actually serve the romance?
Ooh, that is a good question. Because obviously it's a romance novel.
Right.
We can't forget Kat.
Exactly.
So does it actually make the connection between... Is it Scarlet and Lucas?
Scarlet and Lucas, yeah.
Does it make it, like, better, or is it just kind of a gimmick?
Well, and that's where we get back to those, polarized opinions.
Yeah.
Because some readers were really into how she intertwined kink with emotional vulnerability. They felt like it added this whole other layer to their relationship.
Can you give me an example? Because, like, in my head, I'm picturing, like, they're in the middle of something, and then, like, they have to use a safe word, and all of a sudden they're having this heart-to-heart.
It's actually more subtle than that.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, there's the scene where Lucas helps Scarlet overcome a mental block in her athletic training, but he does it by tapping into, like, their shared understanding of BDSM dynamics.
Oh, interesting.
It's about trust and communication,
Okay.
pushing boundaries in a safe space.
So it's not just like, oh, let's throw in some tink to spice things up.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So what about the writing itself? Is it like classic Hazelwood, like witty banter, all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, that's another area where, like, opinions are divided.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some people thought her trademark humor was definitely still there, even with the heavier feigns.
Okay. Did anyone have like a moment that they thought was really funny? Because honestly, a book that could make me laugh and get my heart racing, that's like,
One reviewer actually described it as a moist maker
Oh.
and suggested grabbing a bucket and a mop.
Okay, so steamy scenes, for sure.
Yeah.
What about the romance itself? Like, does it have that, like, signature Hazelwood swoon?
There are definitely some sweet moments.
Okay.
A lot of readers loved Lucas' character.
Yeah.
They thought he was very supportive, emotionally mature,
Oh, good.
especially in how he handled, like, Scarlet's insecurities.
Okay.
But then there were others who thought the relationship lacked a little bit of depth,
Oh, really?
that it was kind of all about the physical chemistry.
So maybe it's more of a Lil Oberon then.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
And that brings us to one of the most, like, controversial parts of the book,
Oh.
the other woman drama.
Oh, no. What is it?
So Lucas is Scarlet's best friend's ex,
Oh.
which immediately, like, sets off alarm bells for some people.
Yeah, I could see why. Especially if it's not done well.
Right.
It could be a little icky.
Yeah, and that's the million-dollar question.
Did she avoid that pitfall?
It's really divisive. Like, some people were intrigued by it.
Really?
Yeah, they thought it showed, like, how much respect Lucas had for his ex, that he doesn't just, erase her from his life.
Okay.
Others, not so much.
Wait, so some people actually like that element. I'm so curious to know, like, how they justified that, because that's usually a deal breaker for me.
Well, some readers highlighted how Lucas continued to value his shared history with his ex,
Yeah.
Penn,
Okay.
while also being honest about his feelings for Scarlet.
Yeah.
They saw it as a sign of his maturity, that he could navigate those complex emotions without being disrespectful.
Okay. I can kind of see that, but it still seems like a little messy,
Yeah,
right? Like, are we supposed to believe that everyone's cool with this situation?
that's a great question, and it leads us perfectly into analyzing the characters themselves.
Okay.
Because Scarlet, Lucas, and even Penn,
Yeah.
they're pretty polarizing figures.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Let's do it. Yeah, they're definitely not like your typical cookie-cutter romance characters. Like
Right.
Scarlet, for example, she's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
She's recovering from this career-threatening injury,
Wow.
which has really like shaken her confidence.
Okay.
And some readers found that vulnerability really relatable,
Mhm.
while others felt like she was too insecure
Okay.
and indecisive.
So not your typical, like, sassy, take charge, Hazelwood heroine.
Not exactly.
Okay.
She's more introspective.
Okay.
She's grappling with a lot of self-doubt.
Okay.
And her relationship with Lucas, with all its like power dynamics and the exploration of her desires, it becomes kind of a way for her to like reclaim her sense of self.
Okay. I see how that could be. Like, appealing to people who are looking for a heroine who's a little more...
Human.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But does that mean she's not as fun to read about?
Well,
'Cause I like a heroine who can, like, throw out a witty comeback
sure.
and isn't afraid to, like, go after what she wants.
Oh, Scarlet definitely has her moments of strength and determination.
Okay.
But she's also allowed to be messy and unsure. And
Yeah.
some readers really appreciated that honesty.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she's brilliant. She's capable.
Yeah.
But she's also struggling with like real life issues.
Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense. So it's like finding that balance between aspirational and relatable.
Exactly.
What about Lucas? Is he like your typical brooding, mysterious hero? Because I feel like Hazelwood's heroes are always like kind of got that like tortured genius thing going on.
Lucas is actually quite different.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's much more open, communicative, and some readers thought that was really refreshing.
Okay.
He's emotionally intelligent. He's
Okay.
very supportive of Scarlet's journey,
Mhm.
and he doesn't shy away from expressing his feelings.
Oh, so he's not afraid to be vulnerable.
Exactly.
That's good.
But there is kind of a flip side to that.
Oh, okay.
Some readers thought he was a little too perfect.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that he lacked some of the complexity and the flaws that
Okay.
make a character truly memorable.
So, like, do you want your hero to be like the ultimate dreamboat, or do you want him to have like a few rough edges that you can like, kind of clash with and
Right.
grow with?
It's a good question. And that's a question every reader has to answer for themselves, right?
Right.
Now, you mentioned 50 Shades earlier,
Yeah.
and I think it's interesting to compare Deep End to like that phenomenon.
Yeah, for sure. Because 50 Shades really like opened the door for BDSM and like mainstream romance.
For sure.
But I'm guessing Deep End takes like a much different approach.
Definitely. 50
Yeah.
Shades is much more focused on like the physical
Yeah.
aspects of BDSM, whereas Deep End really dives into the emotional and psychological dynamics.
Okay.
It's less about dominance and submission and more about finding a safe space to explore like your desires
Yeah.
and vulnerabilities.
So it's more about the connection than the power play.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in that sense, it actually has more in common with books like The Love Hypothesis,
Oh, okay.
which also features like a really strong, intelligent heroine
Yeah.
in a STEM field
Okay.
and a hero who's very supportive and understanding.
Right. The Love Hypothesis, that was like a huge hit
Huge.
in the STEMinist romance world.
Yeah,
Do you think like people who loved that book would also enjoy this one?
I think there's a good chance, yeah.
Okay.
They both kind of have that signature Hazelwood blend of humor and heart and science.
Yeah.
And both feature couples who build like a really genuine connection based on mutual respect and intellectual curiosity.
But Deep End adds that extra layer of kink, which might not be for everyone,
Definitely.
even if they loved the Love Hypothesis.
For sure. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations and really like dissect the book and help readers figure out if it, aligns with their tastes.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's about finding the books that like speak to you
Yes.
on a personal level.
Well said. So let's recap here. We've talked about those like polarized reactions of the BDSM and its complexities, the characters and their flaws. And we've even made some comparisons to other popular books.
Right.
But the big question remains, is Deep End worth your time?
It is the question of the day, isn't it?
It is. Because, we all have limited reading time,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that we're spending it wisely.
Right.
So for our listeners who are still kind of on the fence,
Yeah.
let's lay out like a clear roadmap
Oh, like
for them. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start with the green lights.
Okay.
Who do we think would absolutely devour this book? I would say anyone who loves messy,
Yes.
complicated relationship dynamics.
Absolutely.
If you strive on the drama, if you want your fictional couples to be as flawed
Right.
and unpredictable as real-life people,
Yes.
then Deep End is for you.
For sure. And anyone who's kind of intrigued by the exploration of BDSM but maybe isn't looking for something like super intense or explicit, Deep End offers a much more nuanced
Okay.
and emotional take on it.
So green light for drama lovers, people who are curious about BDSM.
Yeah.
Now, who should proceed with caution? What are, like, the yellow flags?
Oh, I think the biggest one is that best friend's ex trope.
Yeah.
It's a major, major plot point.
Yeah.
And while some people found it compelling,
Yeah.
others were not into it at all.
So if you are someone who values, like, clear boundaries
Yes.
in your relationships,
Yeah.
this might not be the book for you.
Maybe go twice about that one.
Yeah, exactly. And another one, maybe the pacing. Some people thought it was a little bit slow.
Yeah, especially compared to some of Hazelwood's other books.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking for a really fast-paced,
Yeah.
action-packed read, Deep End might not be the best choice.
Okay. So maybe not for the impatient reader.
Right. And finally, if you're looking for like a truly scorching graphic exploration of BDSM,
Right.
you might want to adjust your expectations.
Okay.
Deep End is more about the emotional and psychological aspects.
Gotcha.
And the scenes themselves are relatively tame.
Okay. So we've covered the green lights,
Mm-hmm.
the yellow flags. Now it's time for the red lights.
Okay.
Who should absolutely avoid this book?
I'd say anyone who's adamantly against the best friend's ex trope.
Right.
It's such a central element to the story
Yeah.
that if you can't get past that, you're going to have a hard time enjoying the book.
Makes sense. Anyone who's looking for like a purely lighthearted,
Yes.
escapist romance,
Yeah.
Deep End definitely has some heavier themes.
Yeah.
So it's not like a feel-good beach read.
Right. Exactly. And lastly, anyone who's expecting like a super fast-paced, action-packed plot with like tons of twists and turns,
Okay.
Deep End is much more character-driven.
Okay.
And it really focuses on like the emotional journey of the main couple.
Okay. So I think we've given our listener a pretty comprehensive breakdown
I think so.
of who should and shouldn't read this.
We've laid out all the potential delights
Yes.
and disappointments, the thrills
Yeah.
and spills
Well, based on
real readers,
Yes.
their
Yeah.
feedback.
But ultimately, the decision is up to you, dear
There
listener.
it is.
Yeah, we've given them the intel, the comparisons. We even highlighted those like laugh out loud moments that some people had.
Right.
But at the end of the day, reading is so personal, isn't it?
It really is. And that's what makes, doing these deep dives so interesting. Like we can analyze a book from every angle,
Yeah.
but ultimately it's all about how it resonates with you.
So true. Okay, but before we wrap up, I do want to touch on something that I kept seeing in the reviews.
Okay.
This idea that Deep End might be Hazelwood, kind of pushing her own boundaries
Oh.
as an author.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not the typical, like, light and fluffy Hazelwood romance.
Yeah, it's a little darker,
Yeah.
a little messier.
Yeah. It explores some more complex themes.
It does.
And I think it's interesting to see how readers are responding to that shift.
I agree.
Like, some are totally embracing it.
Yeah.
They love that she's, like, taking these risks and kind of pushing those boundaries of the genre.
Yeah.
But others are feeling a little betrayed.
Oh, really?
Like, this isn't the Hazelwood that they, like, nay and love.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the mark of a truly compelling book, right?
Mhm.
It sparks these debates.
Yes.
It challenges our assumptions.
Yeah,
And it really stays with you
Yeah.
long after you finish reading.
absolutely. So for our listener who's still on the fence,
Yeah.
maybe that's the deciding factor, right? Like, are you looking for a book that's going to comfort you
Yeah.
with, like, familiar tropes,
Right.
a guaranteed happy ending? Or are you ready to be challenged? Like, really dive into a story that's a little bit messy,
Yeah.
unpredictable, thought-provoking?
Yeah.
Is the question.
It is the ultimate question.
It really is.
And only you can answer it.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into
Of
Allie Hazelwood's Deep End.
My pleasure.
We hope this helped you decide if it's the right book for you.
Absolutely.
And no matter what you choose, we wish you happy reading.
Happy